Welcome back to the Circuit Revival, where today we're going to be taking a look at a MacBook, I believe, Pro. So this was actually given to me by my wife's boss. He said that he took it to a repair shop a while back, but they quoted him like 800 quid to get it fixed. So it's just been sat in his house for the last however many years, and he figured it's not doing anything, so why not let me take a look at it. So he said that basically it won't power on. So if we open this up, we hit the power button, we get absolutely nothing. If we then take our ammeter and plug this in, which you can now see at the top here, just up in the corner there, it does get to 20 volts, so the negotiation works, but it's just stuck at 0.01 amp there. So it makes me think there's probably a short or something on the board. So we'll get the bottom off of this and take a look, see if we can immediately see anything. Now, I've never worked on a MacBook before. The closest I ever did was swapping the hard drive in my old laptop for an SSD. So this could be an interesting one for me. But it looks like we've just got some Torx bits on the bottom here. They look quite small, so we'll go with, try this one. There we go. I think we've got the right one there. So we'll just undo all of these. And I'm going to stick them in a pot as we go along, because I will no doubt forget where everything goes. And I suppose if we try and remember that we started the bottom right and then went clockwise, we might stand a better chance at getting these back in the right place. What I might end up doing as we go along with this, I might end up just jumping into sort of an actual online guide as to how to take these apart, because like I said, I've never sort of taken anything apart properly before. Now this feels like it's a bit rounded out, so I don't know quite what the repair shop did when they did this, but either the repair shop or someone else like really sort of rounded out a lot of these screws. So as with most MacBooks there, some of them are longer than others. Let's try and work out how we need to get this bottom plate off then. Okay, so not really working there, but I've got this suction cup thing, which I'm hoping I might be able to use to at least try and just lift this up a bit and get into it a bit easier. It's definitely lifting up more, but still feels like it's stuck on something. Okay, so I think we're on the right tracks with it. I think there just might be some clips or something under here. So I think we just need to slide a pick in each side just to get these clips off. I think there's one there. And then if we try and get around this side. Okay, so I think those two clips should be off. And once that's on, I think it should just pull towards us here and should come off. So I'm a little stumped as to why. Oh, there we go. There's one side. And there's the other. Wow, okay, so they really have sort of improved the tension on these compared to, which probably explains why there's so few screws compared to how many there normally are on a MacBook. So there's usually a load on the bottom, so maybe they've swapped out screws for these sort of like hinge things. So we'll start just by taking a quick look at this. So I believe just need to work out where the battery connector is on this, and then we'll take a look around, see if we can see anything to begin with. Okay, so I think the battery connector is just underneath this bit of pad here, and we can see there's sort of this long, yeah, so that one just slides out, and then we have this big screw here, which I believe is the battery connector. So if we just get a different bit, and then I believe this should just lift up if I can find my spudger. But what we'll do is I'll swing the microscope round for a second. And whilst it's just in the chassis, we'll see if we can actually see anything on this. And then if not, I imagine we'll probably have to get the board out. But maybe something might jump out at us whilst the board is still in here. So if I just pull this round, go there, and there. We should hopefully be on the microscope now. And if we just sort of work our way around, you can see here's where the battery is. And I thought maybe that would be the positive and the negative for the battery, because I believe this whole board area here is in fact actually the battery. And it connects to all the cells further down, but I can't see anything immediately there, so I feel like we probably are going to have to get this board out. There's a connector there that's not got anything in it, which seems a bit strange. I don't know what that connects to. That cap cracked? Or is that just flux? I'm not sure if that's a crack in that capacitor there. Could just be flux, but what we'll do then is if we get our meter into continuity mode, which is the mode that beeps when we have a complete circuit, we go either side this capacitor. Okay, that is shorted. There's no way. Okay, there could just be chance that that's the rail that's shorted, but no way do I believe that we've just landed straight on a shorted capacitor. It definitely looks cracked to me. What I'm going to do then is let me just get some IPA on a cotton swab, and I'll give that a wipe, because if it's just flux, it should just come off. You know, that definitely looks like a cracked capacitor. So what that goes to, I have no idea, but if that is literally just the problem, if they really did try and charge like 800 quid to replace a capacitor, that's mad. You can see there in the light, that definitely looks like a cracked capacitor. Okay, well, we'll bear that in mind. We'll keep working our way around, see if there's anything else. Okay, well, I can't see anything else on there that immediately stands out beyond that capacitor. So what I'm wondering whether we might be able to get away with plugging this in and seeing whether that capacitor gets hot with the thermal cam. It's possibly cheating a touch. It might not actually work, so it might not do anything, but I am wondering whether if we just plug the thermal camera in and take a look at that area, if that capacitor gets hot, then it seems like very much an answer as to what our problem is. I think there's too many things plugged into my computer at the moment, so it doesn't really want to load up. But what we'll do then is if we plug this into the charger, if I rotate this board around just so I can get the charger in place, and our capacitor is just here. So that's there. Let's plug the charger back in. So we get the 5 volts, the 20 volts negotiation, and we'll just have a look over the board with the thermal camera. If I see anything, I'll put the image up on screen. Sorry I can't get it up on the computer currently, but I just think there's too many things plugged in. It doesn't like it. No, so there's nothing getting hot there. But I imagine that's because the computer's putting it into some kind of protection mode, which probably makes sense why we can't get that. So we'll just get this unplugged again. I'll get the thermal camera away, and then I'll try and work out how to get this board out of the actual chassis here. Okay, so our board is finally out here. It's probably the most involved sort of like removal of anything I think I've ever had to do. Like they're well put together, but it really is pretty involved. So I'm just gonna get the chassis out of the way. I'll just place it down here. And here's the board. And what I'll do is I'll bring the scope back over, and I think now that it's sort of out, I think it really is clear that that cap has just gone kaboom. So if we jump back over to the microscope, just over here, there's the cap in question, and I think you can clearly see that crack in it there now. So I wouldn't be surprised if we could just remove that and it be, well, would give it a test if it's fixed. But what I'm going to do is I would like to replace it, and I think hopefully I have got a replacement capacitor for it, but I'm just going to go grab my other laptop, because I think I might actually have a board view file for this, so that way it might actually allow me to work out what to replace it with. I'm sure this is probably one of those things, like with most capacitors, there's if it's missing, it doesn't really affect anything, but I would like to replace it just in case. The problem I think I'm going to have is there is a lot of plastic in this area. So there's this clasp here, and then there's the connector, and that looks like about it really, so not too bad, but trying to get those to not melt I don't think is going to be easy. So I might try and remove this with my soldering iron, and see if I can get it that way, just to avoid sort of breaking any of the plastic if possible. But I'll go grab my laptop and see if I can get this board view file and work out what this is. So I'll jump back in as soon as I have that. So I've gone through all of my capacitor kits here, and annoyingly I've not got the one I want. So I've got the board view. I'll stick a picture up in the video here. I've just not moved all the files over to this computer yet, so I'll just stick the screenshot up. But annoyingly, the one I need is a 22 microfarad, I believe, or 22 UF, whichever one that is. Please correct me in the comments. Annoyingly, I don't have any of those in my kit, so what I think I'm just going to have to try and do to begin with is just try remove it and see if it fixes the issue. If it does, I can order up a replacement, stick it on before I give it back to the owner. I don't think it should be a major issue either way though, because on this rail, I didn't realize at first, but these devices here are all also capacitors. Different type of capacitor, but they are capacitors. So I will try get it off. Now, the difficulty I'm going to have is all of the plastic and those other capacitors in that area. So I think what I'm going to try and do to begin with is get it off just using a soldering iron, and then hopefully that will prevent as much chance of actually causing any damage as I can. So I'll bring the microscope back around. We'll do this all under the microscope. We'll try add some leaded. I might even try with a bit of low melt solder as well to see whether I can just ping this off without having to interfere with all the other stuff around it. Give it a clean up and then see whether it fixes our short. If it does, happy days, I'll look to get a replacement, but also don't think it's a super major in all fairness. So if we move to the microscope, which is just here, and we'll try see if we can get this off with just the soldering iron. I'll just add some leaded solder to this and see whether we can get it to just lift off. Now it's quite big, so it might be quite hard. I might also just need to increase the temperature on my iron slightly, but if I can avoid doing this with hot air, I probably will, because I said I don't want to break those other capacitors or blow anything up or melt any of that plastic that's nearby. Let's try to flux this. Sorry. So I think it says none of that stuff works. I think I've got no choice really but to try and get some hot air on this. So I think I'm going to try and work out a way of blocking everything off, and then we'll give this a go. So I've got a bunch of Captain tape. Okay, it's not the thickest in the world, but I've got the stencil for the switch here, which is direct heat. So I'm hoping I might be able to just stick that there as well to help absorb some of the heat. So what we'll do then, I've probably made this a bit difficult because I've sort of hidden everything, but I'm just going to add a bit more leaded to this, and then hopefully this should lower the melting temperature to get that off. We shouldn't need to be on it for too long. So I'll get my hot air station, I'll get my tweezers ready. Okay, so it's now time for the moment of truth. If we remove all of this, see whether anything got damaged. Ooh, okay, that connector does look a bit damaged. So the next thing we need to do then is double check, see whether that has cleared our short. So we're still in continuity mode. So if we go from this side and on this side, hopefully we shouldn't get a beep. Okay. That looks like that may well be our problem. So we'll plug in the charger again and see whether it's doing anything sort of more normal looking in terms of like a boot. If so, happy days. We'll just have to hope that that clasp is not too melted. If I'm being honest, it doesn't look too bad actually. It looks alright. It's just a bit melted. Not sure quite how it'd go trying to get a new capacitor back on. I think we'd have to try and get it on, definitely with the soldering iron if we were to put a new one on. But let's plug this in then. I'm fairly certain it doesn't matter which port we use, but I will double check that before I plug in and fry anything else after having fixed this. I don't think it matters, but we'll just try plug into this top one then. I don't know if that's not showing anything or whether it's just not caught up. Okay, no. Okay, that looks a bit more like a boot there, so it's gone up to 500 something and then dropped down, which I'm guessing is it starting. Does it do it on? Cool, so that looks like that is fixed then. Let's try and get this back in the chassis and see how it goes. And then I'll look to get one of those capacitors on order. So I'm not going to bore you with me struggling to put this back together. So I'll pull the chassis over and then I'll jump back in with you guys once it's all back together. Okay, so we are back together enough to double check whether this actually boots. I'll be honest, it went together a lot smoother than I expected it to actually. So I'll just make sure that there's nothing on here that could short out the board. And we'll just sort of lean this upright like this. And hopefully, if we plug this in, we should get a bong. So there's our 5 volts, up to 20. That looks like it's doing something. Are we going to get anything on the screen? Yes! Amazing. I can't believe that was just a capacitor. So that's going to load up now. I'm just going to bend this down so you can see that's on. I can let the owner of this know that this is all fixed. So I'll get the bottom case back on and I'll send him a message. But I can't believe that that was a capacitor. Like, I never get that lucky. You see people have them all the time, but I've never had it. So that means that we can come in here and make that 9.3. And all we leave that with is thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.